Welcome to part 1 of the craft of research. These videos are intended to help you learn and understand the craft of research published by the University of Chicago. Part 1 will be about research, part 2 about asking questions and finding answers, and part 3 about the elements of a good research argument. In this video, we will go over chapters 1 and 2. If you have more experience as a researcher, you can focus on part 3 and skim through parts 1 and 2. So let's start. We will start with the very basics. How do we start a research project? We first need a plan of your project. Research is more likely to come together if you have a plan that tells you in general what kinds of material you need, how to find them, and how to use them. You need to plan what way you're going to write in, and how you're going to report your results so that readers can read efficiently. But let us first address the fundamental question. Why is research important? Doing research not only contributes to your knowledge, it will enable you to gather information, organize it into coherent form, and then report it reliably and persuasively. These are invaluable skills. These skills are just as important even if you are just reading others' research, which today includes nearly all of us. Let's go on to chapter 1, where we will discuss the uses of research. Research is simply gathering the information you need to answer a question and help you solve a problem. Most of us do research every day, though we usually do not write them up into reports. We have to rely on the research of others who did write up their findings. In fact, most of what we know comes from research. For example, we know that Venus is hot, but most of us haven't been to Venus. This means that it's important that we trust the research of others only when we know that we can, and not accept all ideas, like ideas that are mistaken, ugly, and dangerous. This is where the art of research comes in. So why do we write down our research? There are 3 main reasons. 1. We write to remember. We write down what we find just to remember it. This is why researchers don't wait until the end of the process before they start writing. They write from the beginning so that they will better understand what they find and remember it. 2. We write to understand. We can see the relationships among our ideas more clearly when we write them down. You can rearrange the results of your research in new ways, thus more easily seeing new connections, complications, implications, and arguments that could pull in different directions. Writing induces thinking. 3. We write to gain perspective. Once we get our thoughts out of our heads and onto paper, we can see them in a clearer light. In our heads, our ideas seem to be more coherent, but often, once we think about them, they turn out to be flawed. You improve your thinking with notes, summaries, commentary, and other forms of thinking, but you can reflect on your ideas using these forms only once you've fixed them in coherent written form. Then, why do we turn our research into a formal paper? One of the most important reasons for reporting research in the form of a formal paper is that writing for other people is harder than writing for yourself. Standard forms and plans are convenient as they help you see your ideas in the knowledge and expectations of your readers. Secondly, the way research is reported should be useful to the research community that the researcher is in, which means it should be familiar to members of that community for readers to easily understand. Finally, writing a research paper is just thinking in print. Thinking in written form can be more careful, complete, well-rounded, and thoughtful, as you can explore and expand and reflect upon your ideas while incorporating your readers in your knowledge. We will now go on to chapter 2, where we will talk about connecting with your reader. Research is not a solitary exercise. By reading a source, you are joining a conversation that could be centuries old. When you research, you make judgments about other researchers whose research you are reading. Those researchers have also judged you by creating a persona for you. For example, one researcher may write like an expert writing to another, while another researcher writes like a teacher explaining ideas to a student. Your writing will reflect the judgments you have made about your reader's knowledge and understanding, but most importantly, what you want them to recognize as significant in your research. Your readers will judge you by how accurately you judged them. If you misjudge their knowledge or interests, you will lose credibility as a writer. So first, you must know the kind of conversation and relationship you want to have with your readers. For this, you need to know who they are, who you are, and who you all think you are supposed to be. Even if you are a student and your paper will be read by your teacher, in your paper you will be playing the role of a researcher and imagining the role of a reader who wants to know what you have discovered. By role-playing in this way, you will be learning how to research. The first step in preparing to do research is to understand your role. Are you playing the role of a professional in the field or not? Why have you been asked to write this paper? What are you to learn from it? Another issue to anticipate is the look of your paper in its expected social context. Should it be a lab report, an executive summary, or a first-person narrative? Do not begin your research until you know what choices you have about the form of your paper. If you have a role to play, so do your readers. You must help create their role for them. The role of the reader should be someone who will care about your research. Depending on the role the readers take on, they will focus on different aspects of your paper. Readers adopt roles based on the different ways they will use your research. If they are reading for entertainment, they might be watching for interesting facts. But if they are reading for practical benefit, they might be interested in how effective your research is. If they're reading for understanding, they will look at the intellectual quality of your research. Readers who want to understand will be interested in new information and how it affects what they already know about it. You will have conversations with those types of readers when you report research to a community of scholars. You need to know who you are writing for, so that you know where you are going when planning your paper. Readers and writers play different roles, but there are concerns common to all readers and some problems common to all writers. All readers want to read reports that are easy to understand. They want to understand the point of your report and how you reached it. Your readers will also want to know how you think your research will change their thinking and beliefs, which is how they will judge the significance of your research. All readers have their own preconceptions and interests, so before you write, you have to think about where they stand and where you stand in regard to the question you are answering. Readers will care more about your research if your question is already a live issue in your community. If this is the case, if they already know your answer, you are wasting their time. If they believe in a wrong answer or in a right answer for the wrong reasons, you first have to disabuse them of their error and then convince them that your answer is the right one for the right reasons. If they don't know an answer, you just need to convince them that you have the right answer and they'll receive it. If, on the other hand, your question is not a live issue, most readers will not be aware of your question before you pose it and will first have to be convinced that your question is worth looking into. Some readers will have no interest in your question, so they will not care. Some readers may be open to your problem because they see how its solution will help them understand their own problems. Other readers may reject your question and answer because accepting them would go against their long-held beliefs. They might change their minds, but only for good, powerfully stated reasons. Some readers will simply not think about anything new. You can only ignore these readers. You must decide where you want to take your readers and what they should do when they get there, when they read your paper. It might be one or all of the following. Accept new knowledge. If you offer readers only new knowledge and new conclusions, you must either assume that they have a prior interest in your topic or convince them that your topic is worth understanding. Readers already interested will be more interested if the researcher can show how new questions that interest the readers arise from the new data. Change beliefs. The more deeply readers hold their beliefs, the harder it is to change them. This is how readers measure significance. When you think about the point you are making, think about the impact that you want it to have on your readers' beliefs and understanding. The greater the impact, the more significant your point, and the harder you have to work to be convincing. Perform an action. Researchers may ask readers to perform an action because they believe that the solution to the research problem can help the readers solve a practical problem in the world. Sometimes this is easy. A chemist figures out how to produce pollution-free gasoline and then tries to persuade oil companies to use his formula. But often, the results of your research will not point to a specific action. In academic research, significance depends on how much the research changes belief, regardless of whether those beliefs lead to an action. Keep in mind that most academic researchers start off by satisfying his own interests. Don't be intimidated with the thought that you have to know your readers so thoroughly right from the beginning. When you begin with your own interests, you will probably not know what you will ask of your readers or even of yourself. You might discover that only after you have found an answer that helps you better understand your question. It is your own commitment that is most important. All writers share certain concerns. The most important problem that beginners face is the lack of experience. Practiced writers have an intuitive sense of what readers expect and have internalized the rules of their field, but less experienced writers have to concentrate to do this. You can avoid feeling overwhelmed by being aware of those uncertainties that you will inevitably experience, mastering your topic by writing about it along the way. The more you write as you go, the more confidently you can face your first draft. Controlling the complexity of your task. Break apart the research process into manageable steps. You will work more effectively if you understand the tasks you face. Counting on your teacher to understand your struggles. Teachers can help you, and if you are a beginning researcher, it is expected that you struggle. Just press on. And that is the end of part 1.